Good. Awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to Chow's Holiday Finance class. I'm excited that you're all here, both in person and online. Excuse me, it's been a long day already. If I trip over my words, I apologize. I think we're ready to switch screens. So we're all here for a reason, most likely because we're from the restaurant and or hospitality industry in one way, shape, or form, and or we've maybe struggled through some of our finance, which is, in Chow's words, one of our financial dimensions of wellness. So that's why we're really here. It's also December, which means that this industry can get a little crazy, right? It can be really fantastic, making a lot of money, meeting a lot of amazing people, helping people with their holiday parties. It can be a really good time of year. But afterwards, it could be a little bit of a struggle if we don't know how to handle all of the money that we make during that month. So it can be the most wonderful time of year, but if we plan through it. So next slide, let's dive into a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. And I want to also tell you a little bit about myself too and why I'm here. So not only do I partner with Chow, but I also partner with a company called wellbeing. I am from the industry. That is my background. I was a sous chef for a long time before this, and I loved what I did until I didn't. And everyone has had their happiness, everyone's had their struggle through our industry, right? So what I'm going to talk about is why we don't necessarily have to leave the industry like I did to be able to work through some of the things we're going to talk about today. I absolutely love what I'm able to do for people because I partner with a lot of food service and hospitality people to teach them what I went through, to teach them where I got to teach them where I'm at today. Because if I can do it, anybody can do it. So a couple of the things that I want to talk about are the 7 money milestones, which is a roadmap for financial security. But we're going to only go through a few of those 7 money milestones today. The specifics being financial education. Congrats, you're all here for a reason. I'm so proud of you for being here. Financial education is the first money milestone for a reason, because if we're educated, then we can make better decisions down the road. We're also going to talk about things like our cash flow, especially during the holiday months. We're also going to talk about things like emergency fund and debt management and some of the things that we can accomplish during this time when we may be making a lot more money than usual. Perfect. So let's talk about the sucker cycle. I also want to introduce our How Money Works book. So we have two. My company wrote these to make financial education a little bit more approachable. So not only do we have the first generation, we also have a new for women specific book, which is kind of ironic since a lot of us here are women. So that's pretty awesome.
Sorry, Valentina.
Sorry, Valentina.
Just kidding, I'll but
no worries.
So we're going to talk about some of the premise of the book and why it's called Stop Being a Sucker, why we talk about the sucker cycle, what that actually means. So the sucker cycle is what a lot of food service industry workers, including myself, have felt through and worked through and go through multiple times throughout the year, not just the holiday season. So what this means is a lot of the times we make a paycheck, we make tips, we make our money in different ways and it comes in different times throughout the month. And then we buy things, we pay bills, we go out with our friends, whatever that looks like. And at the end of our cycle, what next? We don't have any money left, right? We've spent through it, our bills are increasing. So with that being said, the sucker gets a paycheck and instead of putting his money to work for him, he hands that money to someone who's going to make it work for them instead. So how do we keep more money in our pockets? How do we get through this sucker cycle? A lot of the things on the bottom here are monthly spending habits of the typical American. Amongst those are things like eating out. I know in our industry, it's easy to get a tip and go out and celebrate how well the night went with a drink or go out with our coworkers. A lot of that can be ride shares. Now, I'm not going to discount the importance of ride shares either, especially during this month. If you guys need to use them, spend the money. It's going to be worth spending a little bit now rather than a lot more down the road if you get a DUI, okay? So I'm not going to discount the importance of them. Use them. Subscription services, lottery tickets. I know a lot, especially in some of the generations that are represented in this room today, don't necessarily buy lottery tickets a lot, but I know my grandparents do. Spent a lot of money on lottery tickets to maybe win. Coffee, lattes, I know that's a big one for me. And then alcohol, a lot in our industry as well. So with that being said, being able to take a look at what we're spending and where our money is actually going through this month is going to be important when maybe the biggest lucrative month of the year isn't happening anymore. Beautiful. So how can we break the cycle and prepare for the months ahead? This is going to be the meat and potatoes of the presentation today. Beautiful. So in front of you guys in person, and if you guys online would like for me to send you a copy of this monthly budget, I'd be happy to. I'll have a QR code at the end that you can get in touch with me on. So I'd be happy to send you a digital copy for you guys in person too. If you want a digital copy, I'd be happy to send. But let's talk through this a little bit and how budgeting and why budgeting is going to be so important to you guys moving through the biggest month of the year. So budgeting, we all know, can be really tough in our industry. Big tips almost every time we work. We make a paycheck on top of that. Maybe it's not a ton, maybe it's about the same amount as our tips, but there are times when money is coming in multiple times throughout the year. So that can be really tough in our industry to learn how to budget. Now, here's the other thing. With that being said, I think that the industry is making some really big moves. A lot of people are moving right into putting it all in a paycheck, which I think is a good thing. They're moving into putting tips on a credit card or your debit card, which is a good thing. So the industry is really cognizant of what's going on and what's been going on for years and years and years now, and making moves to make it easier for us, which I like. But when we have tips that are coming in randomly, or we still get cash tips every once in a while, it can make it a little tough. So here's what I'll say, and this is how the budget sheet is going to work. On the very left side is going to be where you put every single income you bring in, whether it's a $20 cash tip or a $500 in your paycheck tip. This is where you're going to put all of the money that you bring in, every piece that's coming into your bank account. The middle part is going, oh, and I put the date there so you know. You don't necessarily have to use that to keep track of the day, but I like that. I'm in from different areas, so I want to know what it is and where it came from and the date. The middle part there is going to be the amount. The third column in from the left is going to be all of your bills, all of your expenses, anything that you know you're going to spend money on. This is going to help you not only in the months when you're bringing in a lot of money, but also in maybe some of those months where you're not bringing in a lot. And if you want the digital copy as well, this can be a really great thing to mess around with, get rid of line items that you know you're not spending money on, and add in things that you know you're going to be spending money on. So it's really cool because you can maneuver it to be whatever you need it to be. And then on the very right side column is going to be exactly what you're spending on those expenses. So if you know you're spending $1,100 a month on rent, if that's a possibility out there, let me know, because I really need to know what cheap rent is out there. Put it in there. If you know you're spending this amount on car insurance, put it in there. And here's the reason why budgeting is so important, guys. Because when you're putting down everything that you're bringing in and you're putting down everything that's going out, you start to have more control over your money. I'm also here to say something that I've learned over the past few years since being in finance is that money is an inanimate object, guys. I know it doesn't seem like that because it's very emotionally tied, but the cool thing is we can take control back over it because it's inanimate. So the reason why this is so important is because you can take the control back over. When we're bringing in a ton of money and a ton of money is going out, we don't necessarily know what's happening with that money. So when we write it out and we follow the budget every single month beyond the holiday season as well, this is where you get to take the control back over. When we know better, we tend to do better. That's a Chow saying, and it's so true. When we are educated and we know what we need to do better, we can start to bridge the gap between what we do and what we know. So the first month going through this, especially, Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Very good. I was just gathering my thought there real quick. It's okay, no worries.
Sorry, I don't know.
There are also what I learned today. So what I learned today from a friend who's been in the industry forever. She's been a bartender for as long as I've known her, and not, if not longer. I leveraged her for some of the ideas for the class today, and something that she gave me to go along with too was that there are actually apps out there for people in our industry specifically, which is really cool. So I think the one that she gave me was called Just the Tips, which is kind of funny. And in our industry, pretty hilarious. There are different ones out there though, guys. So if something like an app can help you keep track of that better too, that's a great method. My rule of thumb is always use the method that works best for you. Now, month one is going to be a trial run, especially through December. This is going to be a big deal to keep track of. So trial run first, and then the second month is going to be more of a practice run. It takes 30 to 60 days to create habits as well. So if you want the holiday income to continue to last and your habits to last, then it's going to take a few months of practice. So I would say after about 3 months, if your method's not working, revisit it, revise it, check out and see what's going to work better for you. Find an app, write it on a notebook, use the spreadsheet, whatever works best for you guys. Now let's talk about emergency fund. So this is going to be vital, especially when you're bringing in a lot of money as well. Has anyone here ever had an emergency and they didn't have the money to take care of it?
Me.
Absolutely. I could probably name 10 times. And that's why this is so important, because life tends to happen whenever it pleases. So during the months when we're making a lot more money, this is a great place to start. Building an emergency fund a little bit at a time. Wherever you can is going to be important. You're going to also start to see your savings increase, and that's a dopamine hit. Dopamine feels pretty good for us humans. So with that being said, building up that savings will not only help you in handling emergencies when they come up, but they will also make you feel good as well. There are 2 rules to emergency fund. Your emergency fund is only for that purpose. It's not for going out for that drink. It's not for, ride share. It is purely for emergency fund. Keep short-term savings separate. We always need to go out and have fun. We always need to live in the now too, but keep your emergency fund separate from those things. The second rule here is if you have an emergency, use the money. That should go without saying, but the reason I'm telling you guys that is because we start to get attachment to the amount that we see in our savings. It starts to feel really good after a while. That's what it's there for. Use it when an emergency comes up. Otherwise, if we've spent down all of our debt and we've used all of our money, we don't have money for emergencies, then our debt could go up. We owe parents or our friends at that point if we've had to borrow. So this is why this is so important. And another reason why bringing in more money in this month can help you build up your emergency fund as well. So that can last you the next months. So maybe we're not making as much. Let's talk about magic trick. Who likes magic tricks? I do. I like to go to Vegas and see a magic show every once in a while. So what this is made popular by Albert Einstein. It's called the Rule of 72. And the Rule of 72 states that if you take the number 72 and divide it by any interest rate, that's how long it's going to take for your money to double. So the example here is, if you find something with 1% interest, your money's going to double every 72 years. Go to the next one. So a couple of examples here are, if you have a rising interest rate, no matter what financial tool it is, your money's going to start to double a little bit faster as we move through the interest rates. Go ahead to the next. So for an example here, if you guys make a ton of money throughout the holidays and you start to stash a little bit into your bank account, the average bank account in America is at about 0.15%. So if we put that into our equation, that means that your money's only going to double every 480 years. Who's got time for that? I know I don't. I'm not immortal, at least. If anyone else is, let me know. I want to know your secret. But 480 years to double, that's insane. That means that our $1 in 2023 will turn to $2 in 2503. So let's talk about why that's important. This can also be used for debt. So with that being said, the average credit card interest rate in America is 22.44. So if we put that into our rule of 72 equation, that means now our debts are doubling every 3.2 years. So what that really means, and I'm going to lean on my friend May here from the How Money Works Stop Being Sucker book, is that the bank's money is doubling every 3.2 years. And this interest rate for you to have that credit card, and their money is doubling every 3.2 years.
Jerks.
But ours is only doubling every 480. That's a pretty big deal, guys. So the reason why this is so important is for us to take a look at where our money is actually going, how we can start to make it work harder for us, and where we start to be able to keep more money in our pockets. Because the freedom from finances comes when we actually get to keep more of what we make. And yet another premise from the book. So let me tell you why this is on the cover of the book, and it says Stop Being a Sucker. When you go to the bank, there's typically a bowl of lollipops right there. When you deposit money, the bank says, there you go, nice job, you deposited some money in the bank. But what we don't know is they're taking your money and they're making it double for themselves, but not giving us any interest as well. So that's the premise of the book. Stop being a sucker. When you're financially educated and you know that's what's going on, we can start to make some better moves, keep more money, make it work a little bit harder for us, and be able to create longevity for our money too. Maybe it doesn't just last a month anymore. Maybe it lasts 2 or 3. Let's talk a little bit further about debt, because I know one of the biggest struggles that I went through when I was in the industry was how do I get out of debt and how do I stay out of debt? So a couple of tips for you here. While we're making more money in this month, focus on this, get rid of it. It doesn't feel good, right? A lot of our debts kind of weigh us down. The first tip is to know what you owe. Create a monthly budget and to know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to your debt. Know what you owe, know what that interest rate is. Don't make any more late payments. Whether you guys pay a lot or a little, make the minimum on time no matter what, because that's what lowers our credit score, guys. That's what gets us into trouble. So make all of your payments on time no matter how little it is. Target one of those debts at a time. So we'll go over what that looks like in just a second here, but being able to target one and really focus on one, get it off your chest a little bit faster. Stop charging and cancel unused subscriptions. If you guys know that you're charging your car on things that you're not using anymore, cut the ties with it, guys. Just get rid of it. It's not going to be worth it. If you're not using it now, you're not going to use it later. And then if you do happen to have a mortgage, refinance where you can. Now, I'm not a mortgage professional, but I will say now is probably not the time for that. Go ahead to the next one. All right, perfect. So this is what I was kind of talking about with the knowing what you owe. Creating not only a monthly budget for your income, but a debt budget for your debts as well. Knowing what your outstanding balance is, what your monthly payment is, what your interest rate is, and when that debt is due can help us to not only take more control of it, but target the higher interest debt first so that we can start to knock these out. And to the next slide. All right, so this is the method that I've used. I'm happy to tell you guys that in the last year, I've been able to pay off about $15,000 worth of debt. Here's the reason why. This method right here. And I'm here to tell you guys that if I can do it, coming from the industry, all of you can too, and I promise you that. It just takes a little bit of focus, a little bit of action plan. So what I want you guys to do first, if this is something that you're trying to go through and figure out, is go through that debt budget, figure out what either your highest balance or your highest interest debt is. I would highly suggest the highest interest one, because as we saw with the rule of 72, our debts double fast. So I would maybe choose the one in the middle there, credit card 2 to start with instead. Go ahead to the next slide. And then you guys are already used to paying the monthly amount on that first card. So instead of having that open up in your cash flow right away, use that money and put it into the second card. Also, meanwhile, while you're targeting the first credit card, just pay the minimums on these other ones, loans, cards, whatever they might be. Just pay the minimums on these so that it's not going into collections, it's not going into anything crazy on your credit report, but you're just paying the minimums on those and focusing on the first card. Now, in the holiday season where we're making a lot of money, make sure that you're doing both. You're starting on the first card and you're building up some of those savings as well. Because it's not going to make a lot of sense if you've gotten rid of one of those first cards and you have no savings, right? Then what do you use in January when maybe the month is a little bit slower? Maybe you have to use that credit card again and you're right back where you started, okay? Go ahead to the next slide. And then because we're already used to paying the monthly amount on the first card, we're already used to paying the monthly amount on the second card, we snowball all of those amounts into the third card. Now this third card is going to go away just a little bit faster because all of these monthly payments are being put into it. So what happens next? Credit card free. Now, that may sound easier said than done. It will take some discipline and it will take some focus on your end, especially in those months where you're bringing in a little bit more.
Did you go backwards? Sorry.
All right, so let's talk about the rule of 72 one more time and why it's so important, just to round it out here. So if we take into account what inflation has done over the past few years, who's felt inflation lately? I know I have. The grocery store doesn't seem to be what it used to be. So if we take into account what inflation is, it's about 2.8% every single year, which means if we put it into our equation, our cost of goods are now doubling every 25.7 years. Go ahead to the next one. So here's the reason why that's so important, guys. All of our costs of goods are rapidly rising. Last year in 2022, the average inflation rate was about 8 to 9%. We are just now starting to feel the impact of that, even though we're back down at 3% this year. Our cost of goods aren't going to go down. This is where it is. And I don't say that to scare you guys. I say that because there are things that we can do. If we take the rule of 72 and apply it in different places, getting rid of the debt so we don't have to double our debts, and putting some money into savings so we can grow our actual money that we get to keep, we can start to cut some of the stuff in half by keeping up with inflation. And the next one. Now, the other reason why this is so important is because the average hourly wage is not going up. It's not keeping up, or at least the past year and a half, 2 years since COVID, it's not. So that's another reason why it's so important, guys, to keep up with these numbers. If you save money and you're keeping up with inflation by getting higher interest rates, then we can effectively not only have more money, but have it grow for us and keep up with the wages that are increasing. Now, the most important part of all of this, not only is it something that you should take seriously because money's not going away, right? It's going to be around for the rest of our lives. But the other thing to keep in mind is that it's all about your mindset. It's all about the way that you think about it. It's going to take time to get through the way that we talk about money. It's going to take time to get through what we've been taught about money growing up. And it's going to take time to get through some of the struggles that we've gone through. But with that being said, the way that you think about it is going to be everything. So a couple of books, I'm such a reader now. I never used to be, but I absolutely am now. If you haven't read You're a Badass, this one is so good. And I should have put her third book up here, which is You're a Badass at Making Money. That one changed my life. It is so good. And it helps you kind of think about the way that you think about money and the way that you attract money into your life. Another good one is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. That one's fantastic as well because you become aware of the things that you tell yourself about money. And again, guys, it's an inanimate object. We can take control of it if we're aware of what we're talking about, what we're saying to ourselves. The other thing to keep in mind is we're not all the same. Each of us has different goals that we can start to work through. So don't ever compare yourself to anybody else. What one person is trying to accomplish is not going to be the same thing that other people are accomplishing. There are a lot of social media influencers out there. There's a lot of distraction out there. There's a lot of talk going on about money. What might work for one person might not work for the next. So just know that it's not good to compare yourself to each other. Each of us has different goals, and you're starting in the right place. But the financial education is one thing. The next part of it is going to be taking action. This is all well and good, but if we don't actually utilize it, what are we doing here, right? So what I want to say is, with all of that being said, guys, I know that was a lot of information to take in, right? A lot of things to kind of work through and move through. If that's something that you want to be able to talk with somebody about, this is what this is for. This is what's called a money discovery. This is what I do independently, working with my clients one-on-one, to be able to help sort through some of the stuff that we just talked about and help them apply it and actually utilize it. So if there are some questions that came up today, if there are some things that you want to ask about, if there are some things that maybe you just need to talk through with somebody, please come and talk to me, because this is what I do on a daily basis. My favorite types of people to be able to work with are people that were just like me, coming from the food service industry, that just want to live a better life, have more money, and not live paycheck to paycheck. So with that being said, if you guys want to, go to the next slide. If you guys want to ask any questions, get a copy of the budget sheet, get a copy of the How Money Works book for free, set a free complimentary financial strategy, I'd love to be able to sit and talk with you guys, because again, this is not going away. Money will always be around. This will always be something that we have to deal with, and especially with our fluctuating incomes in the industry that we work in. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? I finished really early.
High yield savings accounts, like there's so many.
So the question was, you can repeat it.
Yes, here. So the question was, how do I feel about high yield savings accounts? I love them. There are a lot of great ones out there. Some of the ones that I typically recommend are Ally or Betterment. Betterment and Ally have about 4.5 to 5% interest rates right now. But here's the deal. That's not going to be for your forever long-term savings. That's going to be more for your short-term usable savings or even your emergency fund. So think of those as shorter term. Yeah, here's the question. Any questions or anything online that anyone's wondering about?
Or I don't know if this is more perfect for like a one-on-one, but or like paying down debt with like multiple cards or loans or whatever. Do you have a like how do you figure out what to pay more than the minimum? Like, is there a good, are you just looking at how much extra you have, or how do you start there?
So, can you repeat it again, Jess?
Yeah. So she's wondering about how to start targeting that first debt, usually, how to figure out how to pay more towards it or what to pay more towards. So what I would say there is figure out how much you're bringing in if you have an average. I know that a lot of us, it fluctuates, right? So it's really hard to tell. But when you have a little extra money, or when you have an idea of how much you have left over after all your bills are paid, figure out how much you want to put towards that debt, and then cut it in half and put half towards savings and the other half. So if you're thinking, I want to be able to put $100 extra towards this, put $50 extra towards it, put the other half in savings. Now that's going to take, again, some practice. That's again going to take some really big focus on your end to know what your budget is every month, to know what's coming in and going out. There's no real rhyme or reason, especially when our incomes fluctuate so much. But having an idea of what you'd like to be able to put towards it at the end of the month will help you.
So to summarize, we're trying to get out of the debt and have that emergency fund. That's really the focus of December, is using that flush time to.
I would say so. I mean, those are, yeah, when we have more money coming in, it's easy to go spend it. It's easy to buy Christmas gifts. It's easy to buy whatever. Our friend next to us at the bar, an extra drink. So I guess what I want to say too is do all of those things, but consider yourself too. Make sure that you're the highest priority, because if we're bringing in a lot of money, I know that I'm a people person. I want to go out and spend all of the money all of the time. But if we can consider ourselves first, that will make it a little bit easier going into January. By being able to put some extra money into savings, we can have that money there available to us in January. Maybe we have a day where our tips weren't so great, or people aren't coming out to eat much anymore because they just spent all of their money in December. And then being able to target debts is another thing that we can do with our higher incomes as well, because if we're bringing more money in, then there's more money to get rid of those cards or loans.
And this is what Chow considers self-care. So self-soothing is getting a massage, having a glass of wine at the end of the day. Self-care is the harder stuff, that like making the doctor's appointment and going to it and making a budget and sticking to it. It's not fun. It's not sexy, but it's going to make January, Erin, a lot healthier and happier if I'm doing some prep in December.
I have a saying that I tell myself, and it's in my calendar as well. Past Jess looks out for future Jess, and it's so true. If you have a feeling or a thought or an activity that past you wants to do, consider what future you would think about that, and consider that when you're making those decisions. Would past Jess really love the idea of spending all of her money in December? Probably not.
Any questions from folks online?
Yeah, I have one. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, now I'm echoing.
I can hear you, or you can type it in the chat.
I'm deaf, so you can tell Erin.
And I'll just repeat it for everyone.
Okay. I'll just say it really quick. If you are paying off a credit card debt, do you feel like it's best to open up a new credit card that has or do a balance transfer on the credit card that has a 0% interest rate? Or is it best to not open up a new credit card and just keep adding the extra payments to pay that off?
That's a great question. Yeah, I heard.
Did y'all hear that?
Yeah. Okay, good. So there's a couple parts that go into that answer. The first thing to consider there is whether the 0% interest is going to be for a certain amount of time or not. So a lot of balance transfers will give you an introductory rate of 0% interest for maybe 12 to 15 months a lot of the time. The other thing to consider when doing that is, are you going to be able to pay off that debt in that amount of time? Because it can make a lot of sense to have 0% interest unless your debt's not going to be paid off all in that time. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider too is, can you open up another line of credit? Will your credit score allow you to? Because you have to apply for it and you have to get approved for it, right? So will your credit score allow for you to be able to do that? And then if you need to use your credit score, say you're going to purchase a house soon, or you're going to need a big loan to start a business, or whatever it is, Are you going to need that credit score, and does it make sense to open up another line of credit? A couple things to consider there. So again, no total rhyme or reason, a couple of things to consider. And I'd be happy to talk through those things with you too if you're trying to make a decision on something like that. Good questions.
Adolfo, anything? Nope.
Not right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
So anything else from the people in the crowd?
The crowd.
The crowd. Oh, a couple of us. Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to say that that's it. If you guys need anything, please get in contact with me. If you can't find me again, I'm always available through chat, so get in touch with us there. But that's all I've got for you guys. If you need anything, don't hesitate.
Thanks everyone for logging on.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Hey,
you.
bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.